Hello everybody, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Brianna Lentz and I will be teaching Fiber Arts Beginner Crochet Class 1. This is the first class of 9 weeks for my local homeschool co-op where I'll be teaching beginner crochet in the Fiber Arts category. However, this will also be on my YouTube channel. So if you are coming across this video via just finding me from my YouTube channel or just on YouTube, you can absolutely go through this class just as I will be teaching it in my local co-op. So go ahead and you'll find a playlist down below if you come across this where I have other videos uploaded. I will be going over today's video and you can just follow along with the instructions I have for the next 9 weeks. And if you are coming here because you are a student of mine in my class from my local homeschool co-op, I'm so glad you're here. This video is so that way if you felt overwhelmed or confused or needed to see more details from class, you can watch these videos every week to kind of review what we learned in class today. Or say you couldn't make it to co-op today, then you can watch this with, your parents or in just you. It's up to your parents. And what you might need if you need extra help learning how to crochet. So today's video is a class overview, and I'm going to go over the supply list that you'll need for the second week of class, as well as I'm going to be talking about what are the fiber arts, what is crochet, different yarn, different crochet tools, that kind of a thing. So first, each class will have a video that you can watch on my YouTube channel, and you can cover the same material that we went over that day in co-op. This is a free resource that can be shared with friends and family or even other homeschoolers who may want to learn how to crochet. This is also intended to help the child or parent learn the stitches each week with a close-up visual to help them make their washcloth or scarf during the week before the next co-op class. In this class, we will be making washcloths as we learn the single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet stitches. You'll be learning how to hold a crochet hook, how to have tension with your yarn, and then when you finish your washcloths, then you will learn how to weave in the ends. And then finally, about halfway through the 9 weeks, we'll start the scarf. And by the end of the semester for co-op, you should be able to either know how to finish your scarf or have your scarf completed. If there is time, and depending on how the class goes, we can add another project, but that will be determined by how the class goes and by a per student basis. I will supply free crochet patterns and videos for each project. The class supply list will be you need a crochet hook size H or 5mm, a tapestry needle for weaving in ends. You'll need cotton worsted weight yarn for washcloth making when learning stitches, 2 skeins of worsted weight yarn for the scarf project that we'll be making in the next few weeks, and a bag to hold all your supplies in to bring to and from class each week. So this is designed for an absolute beginner who has never crocheted, has never done anything like that with yarn at all. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you what is crochet, crochet projects, amigurumi, crochet hooks, yarn, different yarn types, different weight types. And like I said, in this series of videos, the next week, the second week of class, you're going to be learning how to hold the yarn in your hand, how to hold a crochet hook, and how to chain. And depending on how that goes, we'll either learn how to do the single crochet in that class, or in week 3, we'll start the single crochet, and I will give you a free pattern so that way you can learn how to consistently do the single crochet stitch by making a square washcloth that you can repeat however many times you want. But I think that it's really rewarding to learn something that you can use. So you'll be learning how to make a washcloth and learning how to do the single crochet. Then the following week, we'll be doing the half double crochet stitch, and we'll be making another square washcloth that you will have practiced the half double crochet stitch. Then the following week, we'll do the double crochet, and then we'll do another washcloth where you will master the double crochet stitch. That way it gives you enough time to learn each stitch without being overwhelmed. Then once we have mastered those skills, the following week, about week 5, week 6, approximately, we will start a very generic scarf project. So this is something where I will have the free pattern for you, and I'll also have it on my website so that way you always have free access to it. and you are going to have one of the stitches and you're going to make a basic scarf. So you're going to need 2 skeins of worsted weight yarn to be able to do that. And in this video, we'll go over the different fiber types and what have you. So that is what you'll need, along with an size H hook, 5mm, tapestry needle, and also stitch markers, because you need stitch markers to do your projects. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into today's video. I'm so excited to be able to teach you how to crochet. Well, today is a video that I've wanted to make for a very long time. If you are new to my channel, I run a YouTube channel that is everything handmade, homemade, and a lot of what the videos you see and a lot of the content that I make on this channel has to do with the fiber arts. It is a huge love of mine and has been for a very long time. I have wanted to do a fiber arts beginner crochet class series on my channel for a few years, and I had the opportunity to teach a class in my local homeschool co-op for this fall, and I thought that this would be a great pairing. So one of the things that I will be doing is uploading this series for all of my viewers on YouTube, but also this is going to be a great resource because this is the same material I'm going to be teaching for the first few weeks in our co-op class. I designed the class to be 4th grade and up ages. However, I mean, different kids learn at different ages. So that was just a general overview because they should have the, motor skills to be able to do those things confidently on their own by 4th grade, in most cases. So yes, let's see. I have been crocheting for over a decade. It's, like I've said, a huge love of mine. I've made crochet patterns. I've listed them in my Etsy shop. I have them on my website. I've done tutorials on my channel. I've done crochet pattern reviews on my channel. It's just something that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy knitting. I enjoy all of those things. And to be able to have this as a possible resource, not just for my homeschool co-op, but maybe for other co-ops out there, or anybody who is learning to do continued education for their children or grandchildren, nieces, nephews at home whose kids do public education, or anybody that's just wanting to learn. Like, this is a free resource for anybody at any age, at any level in life. Okay, so now that that is out of the way, let's see, I'm going to be just doing a brief overview really quick about what are the fiber arts, what is crochet, what is the difference between crochet and knitting. I have my notes that I will be handing out in my class as well, and I will have this as a resource at briannalentz.com. If you would like to look at this, I'll have that linked down below in a post that will take you straight to briannalentz.com with all of this information provided. And as well as today, I will be showing you what tools you need for crochet. What are the different tools? I will be showing just like a brief overview of the types of yarn, what you can make with them, different projects. So let's go ahead and get started because this is just a brief overview. I will be doing separate videos to go into more detail in other videos. But let's just go ahead and get started. So what is fiber art? Fiber arts is a fine art whose material consists of natural or synthetic fiber and components such as fabric or yarn. It focuses on the materials and on the manual labor or the part of the artist as part of the work's significance and prioritizes aesthetic value over utility. Some examples of fiber arts will be embroidery, quilting, weather cooking, weaving, knitting, crochet, needle felting, macrame, bobbin lace, etc. So what exactly is crochet? So let's look at this. This is a shirt that I made my daughter using acrylic yarn. I have this pattern review up on my channel. I'll link it down below. I made this shirt for my daughter Jules, and it's a very easy beginner-friendly t-shirt. So if you think this is something that you'd be interested in making, I'll link this video down below as well. So here is an example of crochet, and here is an example of knitting. This is a knit hat that I made actually with the same yarn. It's just different colors, both acrylic from Knit Picks. So let me go ahead and discuss crochet. So crochet is a craft developed in the 19th century or 1800s from chain stitch embroidery done with a hook instead of a needle. In crochet, the hook is used without a foundation material to make a texture of looped and interlinked chains of thread. All right, so then what type of art is crochet? Well, crochet is a fiber art done with one hook and one strand and creates a textile. This is a textile. It's very fun and easy and has a lot of possibilities. Like for one instance, I have a t-shirt over here, and over here I have a super soft pumpkin. I have a hat made with acrylic yarn. You know, I'll show you more examples here in a minute. So then if that is what is crochet, then what is amigurumi? I'm sure that when you hear about crochet, you hear a lot about amigurumi. And amigurumi is a Japanese word used to describe the knitting or crochet or stuffed yarn creations. The word comes from ami, meaning crochet or crocheted or knitted. So this is my first amigurumi project, and it's, can you guess? Oogie Boogie. Yes, from A Nightmare Before Christmas. I made this years ago. A lot of mistakes, but do I love it just the same? Absolutely. And yeah, I love him. I put him out every year. We love Oogie Boogie and Nightmare Before Christmas at our house. Another thing would be this stuffed pumpkin. It's just a large type of amigurumi. This is made with a super soft velvet yarn that I got at Hobby Lobby. I have this pattern down below. I'll link it if you are interested. And then this one, I still have a couple details left to make on this. This is a crochet stuffy. Wouldn't technically, I mean, it's technically amigurumi, right? Because it's a toy. But you'll typically hear this as a stuffy or lovey. And this is all with crochet. And this is made with a super bulky blanket type yarn. I have a lot of different little toys. I've got this little turkey that I made last year using a kit from Hirschner's. I did a review on this one as well. I've made Yoda. This is definitely amigurumi. This was using a free pattern. Well, I guess it's not Yoda. It's, what is it, Grogu? Is that his name? From The Mandalorian. I've crocheted a bass for my husband. Even has the stripes on the side. This was actually the hardest thing I've ever crocheted. Was this little bass, this largemouth bass. This was insanely difficult for me. This little dude is using cotton yarn. So all the other examples I showed you were with what's acrylic yarn, or like plastic yarn basically. This is with cotton yarn, and it gives a different texture. And this is using a pattern from a book, Pika Pal. And again, another video where I reviewed her pattern, so I'll have this video linked down below in case you're interested in seeing more of what I think about different crochet projects and so forth. So that is amigurumi. That is one aspect of crochet. I personally really like to crochet amigurumi and toys. I think it's really fun. I get to gift it. My kids love it. I've sold it. There are just a lot of different things that you can do with crochet. It's such a well-loved craft that a lot of people actually don't know how to do. It's become extremely popularized in the last 2 or 3 years in the younger generation, which is, well, it's your generation if you're watching from co-op, right? Like, this has become extremely popular to make your own clothes, which is very, very exciting. And the world of crochet has completely blown up. When I started, it was a lot of patterns from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then it was kind of becoming big, but it was a lot of like hats and generic. That's just the world that you can make with crochet is crazy. Just a few more examples, and then I'll go back into like the nitty and gritty of it. But like, you can do different things with different stitches. This is a cowl. It's like a bandana cowl, basically. And this is using a certain type of stitch, using 2 yarns held together. This is a very basic beginner-friendly pattern using half double crochet. And this is a cowl that's meant to be like doubled over using bulky yarn, which I have 2 examples here. Most commonly, you probably have seen the granny square blanket. You can make sweaters with a granny square blanket, blankets. This is a receiving blanket, size 40 by 40. I've done a cross stitch pattern that was based off of this granny square blanket and using acrylic yarn. So anyway, there's just so many things that you can make with crochet. Hats, and using the same technique as I did for this. Anyway, There's just a lot out there that you can do with crochet. So how is crochet different than knitting? Well, knitting stitches are interlocked loops. Okay, so they're interlocked loops, and the construction means that each stitch can stretch a lot. So when you knit toys, there's a lot of stretch in it, and so then you have to like stuff it, and you can manipulate it based off the stuffing. Whereas with crochet, there isn't a lot of stretch, usually, depending on the type of yarn that you're using and hook size. Anyway, so the main difference between crochet and knitting is that crochet has only one live stitch at all times. The stitch that lives on your hook, crochet stitches are more like knots, making them very solid, and any stretching will normally be minimal. Like I said, and largely decided by the type of yarn used. Also, crochet is much younger than knitting. Crochet has only been around since about the 1800s. Where it specifically began from, no one exactly knows. Ireland is very well known for crochet, but it's typically thought that crochet was, excuse me, I've got a text message, that crochet was born in South America. It's very prevalent in Peru, though there are some sources that state crochet could have been born in Arabia. Not 100% sure there. However, knitting has been around since the time of ancient Egypt. So, I mean, there's a huge difference there, thousands of years of difference there. So like what I showed you is what can I make with crochet? Well, you can make sweaters, tops, pants, accessories. You can also make household items like tablecloths, pot holders, decorative items, and even toys. I've made pillowcases, all kinds of things. What tools do I need for crochet? So I'm just going to quickly show you what tools you need for crochet. You need your crochet hook. There's all different kinds. Okay. Crochet hook. This is a crochet hook right here. Stitch markers. I keep mine in this little jar that I got from Dollar Tree, and I like these stitch markers the best right here. And so these open so they can hook into your work. Okay, so when you Google stitch markers, you'll see a couple different things, and though knitting stitch markers can be used, though crochet stitch markers can be used with knitting, knitting stitch markers cannot be used in crochet. So for example, I've got a couple of these magnetic holders, and so you can get on Etsy, you can get, like I told you, I like Nightmare Before Christmas. So this is a large one with a lobster claw. It's called a lobster claw because it looks like a lobster claw. These are typically just for knitting because you would slide this on your knitting needle, or as my daughter calls them, I think she says like crafting with swords is what she calls knitting. But you can't use this in crochet because you have to be able to hook it onto your work. This is a smaller one. So you can get fancy ones, or you can just, like, these are my favorite. And I personally like having the colorful ones a lot because I will always have a stitch marker for multiple parts of my work, for the front or the back of the work. I use stitch markers all the time. I am not a girl that thinks you win an award by not using a stitch marker. You will need tapestry needles. So tapestry needles, you'll see small ones, big ones. I can't find my normal box at the moment. As soon as I'm done recording, I'll find it. But for the sake of being able to record this video today, tapestry needle is going to look like this, but it's going to have different sizes. So you're going to need the big size and the small size depending on what type of yarn you're using. Get the medium size tapestry needle. If it has a little curve in it, even better. But it'll tell you it's a needle. And if you have any questions at the store, like if you're going to Hobby Lobby, somebody will always be there to help you, or you can email me or ask me in class, or send me a comment in the video and I can help you out. Also, another stitch marker that you might find is one like this. These are fine, but they're not reliable, so I advise against these. Let's see, you need scissors so you can cut your yarn. You can get simple scissors or expensive scissors, like these are Gingers. I've had these since the very beginning, since I was like young. Let's see, scissors and a tapestry needle. And of course you're gonna need your yarn for the project. Oh, how do you know what crochet hook to use? So today I don't have the difference between a boy hook and a Susan Bates hook, but I have different brands. This is a clover hook and this is a boy hook. My favorite personally are boy hooks, B-O-Y-E. That's what I've always used, and you'll be able to for cheap get these aluminum hooks from B-O-Y-E Boy. These are called ergonomic hooks because they have padding around the hook. Whatever, you know, they're fairly inexpensive, so just pick up the aluminum hook to start with, and then the more you do it, you can kind of figure out what you like. But there's no right or wrong hook. This is one that I got a long time ago. This is a size I9, 5.5 millimeter hook. So each yarn will have a recommended crochet hook size to be used with it, depending on the yarn weight. The thicker the yarn, the larger the hook size you will need to use with it. So for example, I have acrylic yarn right here that I use to crochet this Jack Skellington hat, which is, I'm doing like a lot of plugs, but it's a lot going on right now. I have this pattern, it'll be up in my Etsy shop Saturday. But I made this pattern, and I use this using simple yarn from Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn. And so this is worsted weight yarn, and we'll typically use like a size H hook. I hook or a G hook, depending on what is called your gauge. I won't go into that today, but typically you'll use an H hook. So I have a J hook, an I hook. What is this? K hook. I'm using my H hook in the other room for another project. And as they go bigger, the numbers get bigger. So this is an 8 millimeter, this is an L. Then we're gonna go down to a 7 millimeter hook. So that's gonna get smaller. Then we have a 6.5 millimeter hook, 6 millimeter hook, 5.5 millimeter hook. I'm skipping H, which is what's required for my class, and a 4 millimeter hook, which is a G. So it goes G, H, which is missing, I, J, K, L, and then L. The 7 millimeter is kind of like an in-between size. It's a new size that got added to the library within the past like decade or so, and it's extremely popular when making plushies. 7 and 8 is very popular for this type of crochet. Anyway, and so the bigger the yarn, like for chunky yarn, you're going to need a bigger hook. And the thinner the yarn, like this is thin yarn, you'll use smaller hooks, so G and smaller. Okay, so that's how you'll know. And your pattern will tell you, also your yarn label will tell you, which we will go into in just a little bit. What hook is best for crocheting? It's said that aluminum hooks are the easiest for beginners to use. They're lightweight, smooth, and glide effortlessly through your yarn, which is true. What yarn do I use for crochet? So you can crochet with everything from baby alpaca yarn to banana silk yarn. However, the 3 most common yarn choices for beginners are wool, cotton, and acrylic. Even more so common, it would be worsted weight yarn, which is one of the most popular yarn weights for crocheters and is usually the first yarn you encounter, especially if you live in the USA. And in other countries, the worsted weight is sometimes called 4-ply or medium weight. So if you came across a pattern in the UK, it'll most likely say 4-ply or medium weight. Also, they have different terms. And so you'll hear, this is just a side note, you'll hear UK terms or US terms. So always make sure you know if you're using US terms. I won't go into that today. That'll be a different topic for another day. But I've got hair everywhere. So let me show you here. Let me move this over. Now that we talked about the different kinds of hooks, which by the way, I found my H hook. I put it aside separately and yeah, found it. All right, let's talk about the different kinds of yarns. So first, you're going to have the types, which is going to be the fiber content of the yarn. Okay, so commonly you'll see acrylic yarn. This is, I love this yarn, acrylic. It's what I made this hat with. This is 100% acrylic. Okay, so that will typically be in a worsted weight size 4, which we'll go into the weights here in just a minute. Then you have, sometimes you'll see alpaca yarn. This is a yarn with 10% alpaca, 90% acrylic, which means that the fiber is 90% acrylic with 10% alpaca, which is what gives it that halo. And alpaca is very warm. You can get 100% alpaca too, but typically like in your box stores like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, that kind of a thing, they have your selection of those types of yarn has gotten a lot smaller. So you'll have to go online to like a Knit Picks, yarntree.com, Etsy, all kinds of things. You can get 100% merino wool, which is what this is. This is 100% superwash merino wool, and your yarn label will tell you what that is. But this is dyed sheep's wool that has been spun. And this is extremely warm and is very soft and is dry, like wash and dry safe. Then you'll find more cotton types of yarn. So you'll have different types of cotton yarn. You have this sugar wheel cotton from Hobby Lobby. This is Crafter's Secret from Walmart. You can get I Love This Cotton from Hobby Lobby. You can get it from Knit Picks Dishy, which is a very well loved cotton yarn. And they will vary in different types of weights, so you just have to pay attention to that. And all of our washcloths that we'll be doing in my class will be a worsted weight cotton, like this one. Then you have other types, which like this one is 80% cotton, 20% linen. So I have a stash of this to make shirts out of. You'll also have macrame yarn. This is something I got from Amazon to make pot holders with, actually. And then also a common type of yarn is this velvet yarn. You see this a lot. And this is actually what I made my pumpkins with, is that velvet yarn from Hobby Lobby, which this is very, very popular. This had a big moment last year when everybody was making hats with the velvet yarn. And then finally, I showed you that bunny rabbit, and it's made with that blanket yarn. And this is like a super bulky yarn. So you guys, there's a lot of different options out there. There's yarn with rabbit fur, with camel fur, buffalo, all kinds, really all kinds. Typically though, for beginners, it's just really cost effective to be using acrylic yarn. But I personally, my absolute favorite is wool. All of these projects right here is with wool. This is wool. That's my 100% favorite. Lion brand is a great brand if you're looking to buy wool yarn that you can typically get at Joann's. All right, so you guys heard me say numbers a lot. So in yarn, there is like from 1 to 6 is typically, and it can go from like 0 to 8, but typically you'll see numbers 1 through 6. And so first you'll have like your fingering weight yarn, which is a size 1. And that's what this is. It's very thin. And what it's talking about is the thickness of the strand of the yarn. So this is one, well, sometimes they're one strand. There's also specifics into that, but that's beyond what we need today. So this is a 1. This is a fingering weight. This is a size 2 sport weight yarn. Okay, so from this strand to this strand, you can kind of see it's getting a little bit thicker, right? So this is a number 2 or a sport weight, and this is also crochet right here. This is a vest, like a fairy vest that I'm making, Jules. And so sometimes when this is off topic, but sometimes when I'm crocheting, I'll have like a tray of everything that I need. So I've got some crochet hooks in here. I was using a size F hook for this project. I've got scissors, a highlighter for my pattern, excess yarn, and another H hook. No wonder I couldn't find any. I have them everywhere. But yeah, I have it just all in here while I'm working on that project. So it's self-contained and it looks pretty. Anyway, so that would be a number 2. A number 3 would be like a DK. That's more of what this yarn is right here. This is more of a DK weight yarn, almost like a sport weight, but it's a number 3. It's a DK. And then you'll have worsted weight, which is what this, I Love This Cotton is more like a worsted weight. This acrylic yarn is a worsted weight and would mean like a 4-ply. So like a 1-ply, 2-ply, 3-ply, 4-ply, 5-ply will be a size 5 for bulky, which is what this is. This is a bulky yarn, and this is much thicker. It's like commonly you'll hear it as chunky yarn, and it's a number 5 typically. And so this is 110 yards per 100 grams, and is again 100% merino, superwash merino wool. And when it's crocheted up, it'll look like this. And yarn will look different in a hank. Like this is called a hank in crochet than it will in knitting. And then it goes up. Like this is like a number 7, I think, number 7 or an 8. And that's about as big as it goes. So those are the different sizes of yarns, and your project will tell you, your pattern will tell you what size yarn you need. There's a website called ravelry.com, which will have people's projects and project notes on different projects. So if you're interested in subbing yarn or yarn weight, you can do that too. But again, that's beyond the means of this video. So let's go ahead and talk lastly about how to read yarn labels. So here is a hank of yarn. This is just what it looks like once it's dyed. This is like what you would buy if you bought hand dyed yarn versus like a factory typical skein of yarn that you would buy at the store, like Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, that kind of a thing. So first you're going to have the company. You're going to have the name of the type of yarn it is. So for example, you might see Lion Brand, and it might say Woolies here. It'll tell you how many ounces and how many yards for this ball of yarn. Then what it'll tell you is it'll say the color name and the lot number. And that is important because if you're doing, like, let's say you're crocheting a sweater and you are in between, if you need 5 or 6 balls of yarn for that sweater, buy 6, maybe even 7, because that is, the lot number is the dye lot, and the dye lot can change between. So for this dye lot 641583, this exact color will be the same for all dye lots with 641583. But if you have this exact yarn, but your dye lot is different, this color could be darker or lighter depending, because it is made at a factory, but it is not always consistent. There will be changes depending on if your yarn is on top or different, if it's saturated in the yarn dye longer. Like there's a whole bunch of different ways that it could change. Okay. And if you do that, and like, let's say you're doing your sweater and you have everything, but you ran out of the color for your right sleeve and you have to buy new yarn, your right sleeve could be lighter or darker than the rest of your project because it's a different dye lot. Let's see. Next, let's talk about all of this information here. So you're going to see 3.5 ounces or 100 grams, yardage, meters, and then what type of fiber it is. So per 100 grams, there's 175 yards. So from there, you'll be able to calculate what type of yarn it is as well. You'll be able to see how many balls of yarn you need, and so forth. And then it'll give you a recommended size for your knitting needles as well as your crochet hook. And that will also change depending on the project and the gauge that you have, which the gauge is just basically like, are you a loose crocheter or a tighter crocheter? Are you going to have a looser fabric, a bigger fabric, or a tighter fabric? If you are a looser crocheter, you might need to go down a hook so you have the right size that the pattern calls for. If you're a tighter, it's just a way to compare. So that is how you read a label. For contrast, here you have 180 yards for 100 grams, which means that this is going to be a thinner yarn versus this one is the size 1 yarn, fingering weight yarn is 420 yards per 100 grams. So you get a lot more length of yarn for the same amount of grams because it's a lot thinner. It's 1-ply versus this chunky yarn where you only get 110 yards for 100 grams because it is a 5-ply or a really thick ply of yarn. So there we go. That is the basics of what is crochet, what are the examples of crochet, some of the things that you can make with crochet. You can find patterns at my website, briannalentz.com. You can find patterns in books. You can find video tutorials. You can go to Ravelry, which is a great resource. The world is your oyster when it comes to crochet, and it is the easiest to learn between crochet and knitting. From what I'm told, it's what I learned. It is the fastest and it is the easiest to fix if you make mistakes, which is why I'm starting with the beginner crochet class. All right, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope this was extremely helpful to you. If you are in my co-op, possibly you're in somebody else's homeschool co-op, maybe you referred to this video by somebody else, let me know in the comments down below. If you are coming across this video from just having searched and found it, I hope that this was helpful to you. Every video that I post for the next 8 weeks, I will have listed down below and in a playlist so you can follow along with me. If you have any questions, always feel free to email me here, as well as leaving me a comment down below. And I can't wait to see you next week. Thanks for watching, you guys. Bye.